Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is our Friday podcast. Now, I want to give you guys a friendly warning that our normal podcast, which is all about real estate coaching and training, is not our Friday show. On our Friday show, we talk about whatever we want to talk about, focus on whatever we want to focus on. And interestingly enough, a lot of you really prefer the Friday podcasts over a lot of the coaching and training podcasts, which is fine. So today I'm going to start out by telling you all a story. And this is what a typical day with Julie and I is like. And Julie, this is what how I wanted to
Okay.
start today's show. And I know I didn't warn you, but here we go.
All right.
So Julie and I go on long walks every day. We do it for, obviously relationship reasons, but we also do it for health reasons. We always try to get in our 10,000 steps, and then we'll go torture ourselves in other ways, like doing kettlebells and things like that. But on our walk the other day, it doesn't take us long, but on our walk the other day, she starts telling me about some of her coaching clients. Now, I don't have any coaching clients. I sort of retired from coaching about 18 months ago. And I found myself totally mesmerized by each of her coaching stories, each of her clients, all the things they're going through. And my brain was harkening back to when I used to have 60 to 70 when I was full-time coach and I had 60 to 70 coaching clients.
Per
And
week.
yeah, per week. And so then she and I were talking about like all the different solutions and ideas. She had a coaching client who has more inventory than she's ever had before. And, she's feeling overwhelmed because all the normal things. And we went through all these different litanies of experiences that our clients are having. And honestly, it made me long for having coaching clients again, because not only when we were done with our walk, when we were done with our kettlebells, we kept on talking about our coaching clients. And I was realizing during this conversation that I really truly do miss it. And I miss it. And frankly, I'm really surprised by it. So we ended up talking about her coaching clients for like 4 hours, which again is kind of pathetic, but there you go.
It's what we do, though.
It's what we do. And so I guess, and then I realized how much time we talked about that, because Julie's, Inman calls her the nation's #1 real estate coach, which is great. But the reality of it is that like I was realizing how much I still have to offer for hiring coaching clients when she and I were talking. So, for example, she was talking about this client she has, and you don't need to give me any details, Julie, but
Mhm.
she was, because all of her coaching clients, she has an agreement that she doesn't talk about them on the podcast unless they okay. So
Or
Julie's
we're
high in,
promoting them or trying to, connect them, of course.
right, but we're not going to talk out of church, basically.
Hmm.
So she's having this gal's having more listings than she ever had before, and they're feeling overwhelmed, and some of the this is and the other things. And of course, she's doing a good job. The client is servicing the agents or servicing the sellers, but she's going to make more money than she's ever made before. And this isn't a market where it's definitely becoming a buyer's market. And so the natural inclination in that part, well, I need to hire more transaction coordinators. I need to do this. I need to do the other thing. Oh my gosh, I have too many listings. I need to have fewer listings. And so it was fascinating where we went with the plan that Julie and I co-created for this coaching client was she doesn't need fewer listings. She needs more listings because
Counterintuitive, right?
exactly. And so that's what we look for. So for all of our clients who are sort of emotionally reacting to the market, it's fascinating that the natural inclination of every single one of those clients based on their behavior is the exact opposite of what they should be doing. So, for example, with that coaching client in particular, why would she want to take more listings? Because the market's not going to stay in a transitioning market or a buyer's market forever. And if she's able to then, the more listings that she takes, the more opportunity she has to help people and more opportunity she has to make money. Makes sense, right?
Hmm.
She has to get better at. So the three big takeaways was she has to take more inventory. She sounds like she was doing a fantastic job pre-qualifying them, right? But,
Yeah.
she needs to really drill down, maybe go 3 layers deep on the pre-qualification for the motivation of the seller. Normally just asking a seller, so ideally, how soon do you want this home sold? And they'll say, well, I want it home, in the next 90 days or whatever. Sometimes higher end sellers, which is what this coaching client is dealing with, they won't tell you. Or they are having usually when people are sheepish about telling you what their motivation is, it's because they're really motivated and they don't want you to know. Or if they act the exact opposite, if they act like they're completely laissez-faire, could give a rat's ass whether the house sells or not, they're also really motivated. So you've got to get really good at pre-qualifying. And the more you ask the questions, the more you become familiar with the questions, the more your intuition is going to start kicking in. And you're going to realize there's more to the story than what the seller is telling me. Why does that matter? Because she needs to get better at pre-qualifying, this client does, and deciding who the sellers are that are going to be top priority for uh, price
Have to
reduction.
sell versus trying it out types.
Right. Price, maybe she doesn't take the trying it out types anymore. Maybe she just
Hmm.
starts being more selective. Well, so we'll go through the litany of all this today because this is where we're going in today's podcast. And the other thing I suggested that Julie suggests to her is that she starts doing something that nobody would ever think of in a marketplace like this, a guaranteed home sale program. So I suggested to Julie that she suggests to her client that the client starts setting up a guaranteed home sale. I guarantee the sale of your home or 90 days or I'll buy it or whatever the
Hmm.
days would be. Maybe it's, 30 days, 45 days, doesn't matter. Because Julie was telling me that this coaching client works with a lot of investors. And so there's a way you can do the math on a guaranteed home sale. And we teach you guys this in Premier Coaching, by the way, that you can have at least 25 or 30% equity in the property if you end up having to buy it. Now, it doesn't make sense for this gal because her average sale price was 1.8 million. So at 1.8 million, even at buying at 30%, it's probably not the greatest investment to turn into a rental property, but it is a great investment to flip over to an investor. And there are always investors that want to, because an investor's happy as a pig in slop if he's making 10% on a flip. And a lot of these houses don't need flipped. They don't need reconditioned rather. They just basically are, there's too much inventory. So she can find somebody to buy it at a less than market price and an investor if she wants a fast cash sale, or she just puts it on the market if the seller's really motivated at a fast cash sale. Either way, there's ways to make it work. So my suggestion to Julie was get better at pre-qualifying, which again, I think this gal and Julie have really made it so she is. But the next thing is do the exact opposite of what you're thinking and become more aggressive at taking more listings, because when the
Hmm.
market finally pivots, you're going to have all the inventory, you're going to have all the sold signs, and all the future sellers, even as it becomes more of a balanced market, even leaning into a seller's market, you're going to be the most dominant listing agent. So that's what a coach does, and that's truly what I miss. And there's about a dozen other scenarios that she and I were talking about. So today's podcast is going to be about becoming an elite coaching client of Julie's and myself. Okay. Because I've decided, and
Putting your
this,
hat back in the ring because you do
right,
have a lot to offer,
I
and I'm
do.
really very happy to hear that you want to reinvest yourself in that because a lot of
Uh,
people can use your help.
well, why are you happy that I'm reinvesting myself in that? Because I have too much free time and I'm bothering you too much?
Get them out of my hair. Please, it's my cry for help. No, because you do have so much to offer. I mean, this has been our life's work putting together all of the things that already exist in Premier Coaching and certainly in Elite Coaching and with our EXP family and all of those things. I joke with my coaching clients like, this is what we do. Don't ask me about anything else. I mean, we know a little bit about like world events because we stay frosty on that stuff and raising a kid, but beyond that, this is what we do. So I'm very happy that you're reinvesting because there are a lot of people that need your help.
Well, and
You have a
it's
lot to offer.
actually, and you know this too, Julie, when you're coaching, especially at an elite level, a high level, and we're going to
Mhm.
talk about what all this means in a second. You really do. It's cathartic. So cathartic means you're getting something out of it as well. So when you're coaching someone at a high level and you're helping them work through their problems, it might be a financial problem, it might be a marketing problem, it might be the lead generation problem, it could be a personal problem in their marriage or whatever. That's what
Mhm.
elite coaching is, and a hell of a lot more. But when you're working through all those problems, it is cathartic. It's if you have any integrity at all, it's impossible to tell somebody to work out every day, and do the health things necessary if you're not doing it yourself.
That's so true. And, you and I both trained a lot of our Harris certified coaches that run the Premier Coaching program. That's not the one-on-one, that's the daily semi-private. And what's funny is when those coaches are coming up, the first thing they say is something like that. It is impossible to not be a proactive lead generator if I am coaching somebody doing that. It's impossible to not work out if we're working on, the goals in 5 areas of life, and physical is one of those. And working out with very specific goals is on that. It's kind of like reverse accountability,
Well,
actually.
so let's pivot. And I'm sorry if this
Sure.
guy's, I just want to share with you my thinking. And Julie wrote some great notes too. And I wrote some notes on your notes, Julie, about this topic.
Sure.
But I'm going to focus on, if you have to hire a coach today, there's four filters that you can run a coach through. And it doesn't matter what what you're hiring them to do. Like Julie hired someone. I'm going to tell you guys a funny joke,
Oh
a funny
no.
story. All right. So back when we were living in Austin, there was this sign that we drive by on the regular. We would see it all the time. And I'm telling you, this is what I thought the sign was forever. And this is before I had my eye surgery. So now I can see a lot better. Julie knows what I'm
I
about
know
to
what
say.
where you're going. Yeah.
All right. All right. So the sign said what I thought it said was arse, ARSE. I thought it said
As in,
arse.
if you're British, the way you say ASS. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Arse.
So I thought it said arse. So I thought, well, I mean, I don't think that's the best name for probably some sort of, women's
You thought it
workout
was a
gym.
gym.
But whatever, arse. And then I kept on driving by it. Julie was in the passenger seat, and I said, Julie, what is this arse gym? I mean, what are they? How do what the heck is going on in there? And she goes, Tim, it says I rise. It's a sign for a church.
Arise.
Arise.
ARISE. Arise. Yeah.
It's a sign for a church.
But their logo from a distance was a peak spelling arise, and the I was kind of hard to see. So it looked like arse. It was like the worst logo ever.
Or the best logo, because we're talking about it now in front of thousands
Made
of
you look.
people. Exactly. Might have been the best branding ever for a church, not the worst. So why am I telling you that? Because
I don't know.
Well, I do. Julie decided that we had been going to the gym and doing our walks and doing the kettlebell thing, whatever, whatever. Well, she thought, well, you know what? I'm going to take my workout routine to the next level. So she's now doing, when we're in Puerto Rico, she's doing a daily boot camp. This is not even designed to be done daily. Most people do it once or twice a week, and it is brutal. And she's been doing it every single day. So, Julie, why did you decide to go from essentially doing what we were doing, which was working, obviously, and keeping us healthy, to going to the next level? Why did you do it?
Well, that's a good question. Why did I do it? Why do I do it every day? Every time I'm in that class, I'm asking myself the same question. We joke about that, my friends that do it at the same time. Well, so for me, taking it to the next level, because it's not like I wasn't exercising. I didn't go from doing nothing to doing boot camp every day. It's that last, it's like, 212 degrees makes water boil, 211, you're just hot water. So to me, it's that extra degree of maintenance. And it's hard for me to like maintain that last 3 to 5 pounds or, working against getting older and all of the things that are working against you. I mean, even gravity's working against you all the time. So for me, that's part of it is the continual maintenance. For me, it's easier to do it than not to do it, if that makes sense, because
Why
of
is it
that.
easier to do it? What does that even mean? Why is it easier to
Because
do
if
it?
I don't work out at a high level almost every day, I take off Saturday and Sunday, usually one or the other or both. But during the week, I mean, you can feel it when you go back. You take a day or two off, it's so much harder. So why not just maintain? That's one reason. The other reason is I like the social aspect. So for our listeners, when you do group exercise, you have mutual suffering and you bond over that. It's a great place to network. There's lots of, I do talk about real estate and different things. So it's that. But also because if I'm going to coach people to take care of themselves, I better be taking care of myself. For example, when a new, say, kettlebell or, choose your exercise, maybe boot camp or it could be Pilates or something like that. A new instructor comes into the room. Aren't you kind of consciously or subconsciously kind of checking them out? Do they seem focused? Do they seem disciplined? Do they seem like they need to lose 20 pounds? Do they seem organized? We had a new boot camp instructor that was learning on us. And guess what happened? Nobody showed up the next day. To your point, Tim, with the 4 filters for coaches, right? I think that's what you led
That's
to
I'm
on this question, right?
right. Well, but that's you're making. So thank you for help.
Like, do they do it? Do they do it at a high level? Have they done it before? Are they polished? All of those types of things, not just in real estate, but in all of the things in your life, right?
Well, but more specifically, Julie, where I was actually going, but I like that is as well, is that if you're not working with someone who is your coach, who's not in a state of improvement themselves on all
Yeah.
on the most, there's 5 categories of life. Julie, what are they that we're basically, generally speaking, people try to set goals around?
You have financial, which is what you often hear about at the top, financial, physical, um, emotional, spiritual, and education.
Right. That may be 6, but same idea. You added emotional. You added
Emotional,
emotional.
spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, spiritual, and you can
Yeah.
just, I don't even like the word spiritual. I'd say your relationship with God. We can,
Sure.
Julie, you and I can,
Different iterations for different people, but yes, the same idea.
Julie, this is
Um,
this is the Friday show. We don't have to basically
the
nerf up
gloves
what
off.
we actually think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Religion, people. That's what it
really,
is.
exactly. So the moral of the story is that if you're not, first of all, just think about this. If you're thinking about taking advice from anybody, if you're not looking for somebody who's already where you want to be, maybe even 3 steps ahead of where you are,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be listening to that person. You shouldn't be
At
asking.
all, like on any level, like if I walk into a boot camp class and the instructor's like, all right, let's go. And people are like, hey, who are you? Where did you come from? They're like, well, this is my first class, but I got to tell you, I've watched like 75 videos on YouTube about how to teach this. I'm out. You have to do it yourself. You have to be constantly improving upon yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is where basically all this goes. Is it was what's Julie been alluding to, is when you're making a decision who you're going to hire to basically be listening. And now here's the challenge: if you are not living in an environment where there's people that are already operating at two or three levels than where you are, who are you going to go to? Where are you going to go to find any sort of mentorship? Who are you going to actually ask for advice? And that's the reason a lot of people basically turn to folks like, they'll go to YouTube coaches.
Right.
They'll go to any place they can find what they perceive to be free advice, but you all don't know how to go about discerning who you should be listening to and who you shouldn't be listening to. It doesn't matter what level you are in real estate. Like, I'll tell you, it's fascinating to me. Some of the wealthiest clients that we have, people that are millionaires and whatnot, they don't know shit about managing money. Like, not managing in terms of balancing a checkbook. By the way, your goal should not be to have to balance a checkbook. The goal should be to have enough money that you never have to worry about balancing your checkbook. But that aside,
You're talking more about investing and what to do with the money you're making and that kind of thing.
right. So the moral of the story is what I'm trying to say is that you have a lot of folks that, for example, are seeking advice or suggestions on how they can improve their financial lot. So they might have an exit one day from selling real estate, but they don't really know how to do it. And what they've done is they've delegated that to somebody else that doesn't necessarily have their best interests in mind. So there's 4 filters that you guys should write these down and never forget this. Anytime you're thinking about hiring anybody to perform or provide any kind of service to you. And in these questions, I'm going to reel them in and focus them on real estate coaching, because it'll absolutely shock you when you actually, if you have anybody that you've been listening to, when you start applying these 4 filters to the folks that you're now actively seeking advice from or listening to and trusting that they have your best interest in mind. So the first filter is, again, when you're thinking about hiring a real estate coach or really listening to even a trainer, is, have you actually sold real estate before? And this is what's really, truly shocking to me, is how infrequently agents think they should only work with people that have sold real estate before. Because if you go to, maybe, I don't even know how you'd go about finding out who the top 20 influencers are in the real estate education and training space. But if you were to go, I can just, off the top of my mind, on a single hand, I can think of the ones that sold real estate before. That's an easier way of thinking of it. Most of them have never sold real estate before. You have people that have built big brands for themselves in the education and training space for real estate agents that have never sold real estate before. So I would think the very least requirement that you would have for anybody that you're thinking about listening to for advice about building a real estate business is, the first thing has to be, have you actually sold real estate before? Makes sense, right? I mean, would you go to a YouTube doctor who wasn't actually a doctor and ask for advice? Of course you wouldn't. But that's what a lot of you guys, sorry, that's what a lot of you guys are doing. So the second thing you're going to do, let's say you do find somebody that you're listening to and you're taking suggestions from, and they have sold real estate before. The second question you need to ask yourself is, have they sold at least 100 homes in a single year? Have they sold at least 100 homes in a single year? That's a really good question. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. Did they sell individual sellers? Did they sell homes for individual sellers, work with individual buyers? Or did they list a subdivision or sell a bunch of lots or list a tower in Miami or whatever? And then they sold 100 houses because they're a new build rep. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're going to be taking advice and you want the advice to essentially have, a better chance of sticking with you and working with you and helping you to accomplish your goals, if you're going to be making the decision to absolutely turn yourself over to a coach, let's say, number 1 rule, have they had a license before? Number 2, have they sold at least 100 individual homes before? Number 3, and this is where, frankly, you're going to lose. Honestly, of all the coaches I can think of that have had real estate licenses, of the 5 that I have in the top of my mind right now, there's probably only, as far as being active real estate coaches, there might be only 2, 3 with Julie and I that I can think of meet this next criteria. The next criteria is, did you, Mr. Wannabe Real Estate Coach, did you sell 100 homes for at least 10 years in a row, between 100 and plus homes for at least 10 years in a row? Around 10 years, that's fine. It doesn't matter really. 5 years at selling 100 homes per year, that's impressive in itself. But did you absolutely accomplish that goal? So if you can find somebody that's had a license, sold at least 100 homes in a year, and then has sold at least 100 homes per year for, say, 5 years or 10 years, that's impressive. That's somebody that not only knows how to, sell 100 homes once, but they know how to do it continuously. That's a skill set. That's somebody that knows how to, has
Mhm.
consistency in their business, consistency in knowing how to build a business, probably has got their act together. It's probably somebody that has something to offer that you should be listening to. Not that the other first two groups do, but not as much as the guy who's now passed through the third filter. Now, the fourth filter in the real estate business right now, I can only think of three people, with Julie and I being two of them, that absolutely positively hit the fourth filter. And if I were you, especially if you're at the top of your game, especially if you're a potential elite coaching client, if I were you, I would only hire someone that had, or even consider hiring someone that passed through the first three filters. But the first filter or the fourth filter, that's going to be the ultimate line of delineation as to whether or not you should even listen to them as a real estate coach. And here it is. Has that coach actually performed at least 100,000 paid one-on-one coaching calls? If they haven't, then they're not qualified, especially if you're operating at the elite level, especially if you're doing really well, especially, and Julie and I are going to give you some suggestions here. How do you know if you're ready to hire an elite coach? But the moral of the story is you need to only consider someone who's absolutely positively proven that they've sold, or I'm sorry, that they've, performed over 100,000 paid coaching calls. Now, I'm emphasizing the word paid. Why? Because a lot of times when you're asking someone if they've actually, what qualifies them as a real estate coach, they will lie. They will lie to you, and they will obfuscate the answer by saying, I've got so many people that are listening to me on YouTube, or last month I had 5,000 views on YouTube, or I was on stage in front of 2,000 people, or whatever. They will not answer the question with a truthful answer. They will listen to your question, and they will try to change the question so that the answer that they give doesn't invalidate them. That is what they're going to do. I've heard people doing this on YouTube when asked the question. I've heard people doing this in live events, real estate coaches. They're just lying because they know that they haven't. By the way, a lot of the times it's the same people that have never sold real estate before. They're trying to make, and they'll say things like sales training is sales training. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
social media marketing is social media marketing. Branding is branding. I can teach a plumber how to do branding, or a real estate agent how to do branding. Okay, that's great. But you need somebody, if you're wanting to learn branding, for example, that has had a real estate license, that has sold 100 homes per year, that has sold at least 100 homes for at least 5 years in a row, and has actually done over 100,000 paid coaching calls. Again, why the 100,000? Why the paid? Because if you have had 100,000 individual one-on-one coaching calls, and individual agents have paid for those coaching calls, then that tells you that the market has already decided that that coach is worth listening to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to be paid for that many coaching calls. Does that make sense, Julie?
It does. Let me just add one clarification too, both to the 100,000 and paid, but also for 5 years, because you can't do all of those things and not have coached through a different types of markets in different markets. Okay. So some of you think, well, I'm only going to hire a coach that's in my local California market. That's probably a mistake, because the best coaches have much more depth and breadth because they have coached through not just different areas and price ranges, but also through recession, no recession, housing crash, housing boom, all of those ups and downs. And if you've been a successful coach to help agents through that kind of variety, that's a completely different level of coaching than somebody who maybe sold 100 houses during the pandemic, or even 50 houses during the pandemic, and has a great YouTube channel where they've got 10,000 people listening to them. So what? That's virtually irrelevant because they don't have that depth and breadth of experience. That allows us to take somebody who says, you know what? I don't want to build a brand. I just want to do my 4 deals a month consistently without spending a bunch of money, without speculating. How you coach that person is different than somebody who comes to coaching who already has put out a lot of video production and wants a different path. That versatility that is required to coach many different agents at many different levels, that's different. You have to have gone through the 5 years selling at least 100 houses a year through different types of markets. Does that make sense, Tom?
It does, but you know what, Julie? I know that intuitively, the reason our podcast is the number one listened to daily podcast to real estate agents, and the reason that you and I have been in this business for more than 2 decades, which is shocking to say. But when folks listen to us, they can intuitively hear the difference. They can hear those 100,000 plus coaching calls in our
Hopefully.
voices and the way we say things. They can.
Mhm.
They can tell. You can read 700 5-star reviews on iTunes and all the other things. When they read the comments, the reason that they listen to us and the reason they've listened to us for a long, we've done 7 or 8,000 podcasts. um, is because they can hear the difference in how we present things, and they can intuitively see we're not just saying the fluffy surface stuff.
Sure.
We're drilling down, and we're not just saying very little of what we'll say is what everyone else says, because what everyone else says, they're just parroting each other, and they don't know any better because they've not actually they don't have our experience. I don't. The only, like, how do I say this? I'm not crapping on our competition because you guys are hopefully going to become more discerning connoisseurs of real estate coaches. I actually, when in contact with some of these guys and gals, I encourage them to stay on the path and become real estate coaches. But it's a lot harder to become. Look, if Julie and I had stayed selling real estate and we hadn't essentially rolled into being real estate coaches, we would be selling, we'd probably be the number one agents in the world, frankly, based on our mindset and our path.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming real estate coaches, especially at the level in which we've done it, is so much harder than building a big real estate team.
It is.
It's so much harder than managing a big inventory of homes for sale. Becoming really good at being a one-on-one coach, like what we've done, is cathartic, like I was saying at the top of the show, but it's also incredibly hard. To Julie's point, you have to meet everyone where they're at. And not everyone's coming to you with the same set of, like, some people will say, they'll join one of our other coaching programs. We have Premier Coaching, we have Premier Coaching one-on-one with one of our other coaches. And the agent will, we do a little survey and they'll say, well, what is it you're hoping to learn? And the agent will show up and they'll say, and Julie and I read all the surveys of new incoming coaching clients. And they'll say, like, I want to learn how to do branding, or I want to learn how to do this or the other thing. And then, well, how many houses did you sell last year? Well, I sold 50 houses. Where those transactions came from? This, that, and the other. Okay. So you want to learn these other things. And so what we're going to do is, as coaches, what we're going to say is, the easy button is for us to teach that person branding or have the coach teach that person branding. But that's not what's best for the client. The client probably has come across something that, was frankly not even true, that was nefarious, and said, you need to learn branding. Well, what a good coach is going to do is they're going to say, well, tell us about those other sources of business. I get it from centers of influence and past clients. I get a lot of referrals from this source, and maybe whatever it is. Okay. So before we worry about creating any additional lead generation spokes, let's go back and let's make the most of the spokes you've got and create the most opportunity of what you're already willing to do at a high level and you're comfortable doing. And then let's go back and then maybe talk about adding some new spokes. But see,
I want to hover there, Tim, because people don't necessarily, recognize that. That's a very typical new coach mistake. Which is, let's teach you something new. And sometimes that new coaching client will come to us saying, I want to learn branding. I want to learn how to do videos. I want to learn how to do whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is. An inexperienced coach will not do that drill down where you said, well, tell me about your existing business, because the first level is getting more out of what you already are willing to do, Julie, good at.
Why don't they do it why don't they do it the ethical way? Because they don't know how to, because they only know how to do one thing. They don't have versatility. That's the bottom line.
And related to that, the other version that they will do is teach or coach only what they have done, their method, right? So maybe I'm a coach that, like, I'm really great at new construction. That's my thing. I'm going to naturally gravitate to wanting to teach what made me money, but maybe that's not even remotely appropriate for who you're talking to. There's a lot of introspection that goes on, and it may or may not be the right path for that person. Maybe they have been doing really great on open houses, but they only do them once a month. What would happen if you systematized your open house plan? What would happen if you used open house scripts and you marketed and advertised your open houses? Maybe you could double their production doing something better that they're already starting to be really good at.
Yeah, that's really, so what we're saying is a true one-on-one coach, an elite level coach, which is what we are. They're going to meet you where you're at. They're going to find out what you're really good at, and they're going to make you great at it. And maybe once you become really great at that thing, you'll never have to even worry about doing anything else. And somebody who is essentially a trainer, which is not what a coach is just going to train you to do what they know how to do because they don't know how to do anything else. And that's what you see most of the time in the marketplace, especially when it comes to social media marketing, buying leads, all that type of thing. That's 99% of the time, just the lack of the depth and the breadth. And I don't blame the coach, honestly. They
Sure.
haven't been in it long enough. They haven't had the opportunity to coach as many people as we have. Um, I'll say the biggest surge of people that we're getting that are joining Premier Coaching and certainly talking to Julie about elite coaching are people that want to learn how to do proactive lead generation, want to learn how to manage more listings, want to know how to essentially build a business around sellers. They've been listening to our podcast for a long time and they realize that working with buyers, especially if you're doing it at scale, is almost impossible to do when you add staff and the rest of it and make any kind of profit out of it. They're not just hearing us say the words, they're doing their own, they're talking to their accountant and they're realizing what we've been saying for years is true. That's a lot of the folks that are discovering us. A lot of folks too, it's fascinating, Julie, the profiles, most of them will say, I've been listening to you and Julie for years. And,
Right here.
yeah, exactly. And then they'll say something like, you guys said this, and sometimes they'll even remember, it was April of 2000 and whatever the hell year it was.
Yeah.
And I remember because I was going to a listing and it was a center of influence and past client. And I thought, oh, I never need to have a pre-listing pack or pre-qualify. They're a center of influence and past client. And just yesterday, I lost one from a center of influence and past client because
Yeah.
I was competing for it. So most people won't make a change. It's interesting until they start suffering from not having made the change in the first place.
You have to have the pain to make the change.
That's how most people act. Frankly, that's how most countries act too. And if you could sort of accept the fact, everyone thinks they're like, are you motivated by the carrot or the stick? Everyone says, I'm motivated by the carrot. Like nobody's motivated by the carrot in the truest sense. Like you can say, I'm motivated by the carrot. I want to go buy a new boat. I'm going to, figure out how to pay for it. That's motivated. Okay. If you have an existing boat that you love and you're about to lose that boat, and you don't want to lose it, that's motivation. So losing something you already have is always a greater motivation than gaining something that you want, which is very fascinating. So if you just accept the fact that you're like that, and then kind of, if you're that's the ultimate way to create motivation, by the way, you have to kind of game yourself. But what we want to talk with you guys about and really drill down on is for those of you who are ready to go to the next level, who you are ready to hire an elite coach. And now we've told you the 4 filters. Julie added a 6th one, frankly, have you coached in different markets? I thought in different market conditions with different interest rate environments, different economic environments, recession or no recession. Julie, we need to make the 5 filters because that was a really great point.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
so for that sake, guys, we're going to go through and as we go through these points, I want you guys to ask yourself, is this you? Is Julie describing you with these next 7 points as to whether or not you fit any of these, filters? And Julie, we'll vamp on each of these points just so we can kind of drive it home. But here's ultimately what I want you to keep in your mind. You know if you're ready to hire an elite coach. And I'll tell you how you know. Because you're successful. You want to go to the next level. You don't want to lose what you already have. You can afford it. That's a big part of it. Let's be honest. It's not cheap. You can afford it and you're afraid to do it. Okay. The 5th one's the most important thing. So if you are the first 4 things, but number 5, you're really nervous about doing it, that's when you're actually ready to hire an elite coach. And why is that true? Because you're taking it seriously. You're not just dabbling. And on the other side of that elite coach relationship, you're going to be making changes. And now you're saying, okay, I got to mentally, emotionally position myself and ready myself to make these changes. That's when you know you're truly ready. So Julie, let's roll in.
Okay. So we're going to talk about different types of coaching clients potentially. The number one is the high producing agent who maybe just feels stuck. You've been in business for 10 plus years, maybe even more. You're skilled, you're experienced, maybe even producing at a really high level, but something feels off. What used to work maybe isn't delivering the same results, and you're ready for a reset, a challenge, or a new system to break through that plateau. That's a fairly common profile. It's not that you don't know how to pre-qualify a lead, or maybe you have your lead generation in place, but you just feel stuck. And sometimes stuck can be at a really high level. Maybe you're stuck making $1 million a year, but you're tired of doing that for 3 years in a row and you want to go to the next level. Okay. So that's one. Do you want to hover there? Or do you want to do the next one?
Well, no, I just wrote these 4. I wrote this down last night, actually, as I was
Okay.
thinking about today's show. What elite coaching really is, the elements of it are, again, it's catered to your personality. It's not a one size fits all approach, but the things that we're going to focus on with you, and sometimes people are more interested one specific thing or two specific things, and that's fine.
Mhm.
We're going to focus primarily on your business. We're going to make sure your business is running efficiently.
Mhm.
We're going to go through all your expenses. We're going to go through all your we're going to go through all the things that you're spending money on, and we're going to make sure you're running a really efficient business, that you're maximizing your profit. Because point number two that we're going to focus on is we're going to really do our best to help you focus on wealth building. You're in this business ultimately for the sake of building wealth for yourself and your family. And so one day you can be rich. And rich is merely where your money works for you. You no longer work for your money. And yes, that means we're going to go into your investments. Yes, that means we're going to ask you, this is for elite coaching only. We're going to ask you to set up Monarch Money, and we're going to have access to it. So we can actually go in there, Julie and I, and we can see where you're spending your money. Yes, that means that, remember I said the fifth thing, if you're fearful of basically hiring a coach because it's going to require you make changes, this is what I'm talking about. Julie and I are going to want to go in there on a weekly basis, and we're going to log into your Monarch, and we're going to see exactly what's going on with your financials. We're going to see where maybe you're wasting money, you don't even know it. We're going to see an expense pop up, and we're going to say, what is this? And you're going to say, well, so-and-so who is my marketing team said that I need it. Well, why did they tell you that you need it? Well, they said it's an integral part of our marketing plan. Well, did you go in there and actually drill down why you're spending $300 a month on this particular thing? And all have already done it before I asked the question, and all I've already determined that I knew it was a waste of money, but you didn't do it. And then I'm going to say, well, let's have a little powwow with this marketing person, why they're so willing to have you spend stuff on money on things that doesn't make, you guys get the point. So we're really going to hold every single expense and help you hold, if you have any staff, accountable to the bottom line. Because ultimately, the ultimate litmus test of all of us as business owners is, yes, the number of people we serve, yes, the number of houses you sell, yes, all the things, but it's the profit you make from the business that you're running. So we're really going to drill down with you and make sure you're running a very profitable business. And we're going to do it in a very, I think, dispassionate way. We're not going to fall prey to the legacy expenses that you've got just because you've already done it. And we are going to, and oftentimes some of this stuff is it's tied to emotions and ego, and we're going to confront you with those things. Julie, why are you doing this marketing campaign? Why are you doing this direct mail campaign? Well, I've done it because I've done it forever and da 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 da. Okay, well, tell me how many actual transactions you get from that particular campaign in the last 6 months, let alone 12. Well, I haven't gotten any. It's just building my brand. What? So
Or they'll say, well, I did one and I broke even.
I sold one house and I broke even. Yeah. Why are you doing this big Facebook campaign? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You guys do not necessarily know how to hold all those expenses accountable to results. We do, and we will do it for you. Okay, the next thing is we're going to really drill down on health. Most of our elite coaching clients, I'll say, are probably in their late 30s to, I'd say, mid 60s. Those are Julie's. That's about right, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're going to really focus on health. And we're actually, thinking about writing a book about this, because a lot of it is okay. So Julie, tell them about, just as for example, what you and I were talking about this morning about supplements. You don't have to do a long thing about it, but tell them about what you learned.
Yeah, well, if I can do it in a few sentences or less, basically there's a lot of new research that shows that much of what we think we're doing right with putting supplements and even vitamins in our bodies are not actually what we think. Everything from, depending on where it was manufactured, it might not even have any of what you think you're taking in that pill or in that, liquid or whatever you're doing. Some of them actually have negative effects. Did you know that taking too much calcium, you think taking a little calcium is good? I'll double up. I want really strong bones. In fact, that can cause your arteries to harden, not just your bones. And what happens with hardened arteries? Heart disease. So there's a lot of that type of thing where we're constantly checking our thinking and updating our thinking and checking our biases so that, yes, Tim and I want to take care of ourselves, but by doing that, we also share those insights with you so that you can be the best person you can be. Yes, of course, we're going to do what Tim just mentioned and deep dive into your finances and all of that, but that can be super healthy. You've got to be super healthy too. Is that what you were drilling down on, Tim?
It was, but what we're going to do is we're going to expose you guys to some of the best preventative health regimens that we have discovered. And we've learned a lot about these from just years and years of study. But for example, you guys are going to want to, well, I'll just tell you, you don't have to do all this as an elite coaching client, but we're going to encourage you to do a blood test twice a year. And we're going to have you do it with a lab that's going to be able to test for all the precursors for any of the nasty stuff that sidelines people. We're going to ask you to do an annual a full body, I always get this wrong,
MRI
it's MRI scan. And we're
scan.
going to tell you where to go, and we're going to tell you exactly what our experience with that is. So we want you to absolutely be operating at peak physical health, because here's there's no sense of building this really fantastic business if you're not going and earning lots of money, if you're not going to be healthy enough to enjoy it, or healthy enough to enjoy it with your family, right? So,
Exactly.
and that's where a lot of people are. Yeah, we're going to talk about semaglutide. We're going to be talking about working out. We're going to be talking about hormone replacement therapy. We're going to be talking about hormone replacement therapy for men and for women. We're going to be talking about all those things. I mean, I've been on HRT for years, and all those types of conversations. You guys don't have a safe place to go where someone's not trying to sell you something. We have nothing for sale, by the way, in that
Right.
space, because everyone's trying to sell you into their red light therapy machine or their cold plunge machine.
Mhm.
Did you guys know cold plunges are now, the research is now showing us that basically cold plunges can reduce your lean muscle mass by 30%. And yet all these health nut gurus who are, by the way, selling cold plunges, we're telling you of all the benefits. All these sort of leading edge, trendy health things, Julie and I are always skeptics of them when it's followed by a sales pitch. And that goes with supplements. That goes with all these different, things. So
Well,
health
even
is,
Tim, if you look at some of our podcasts from even about a year ago, we were both wearing glasses, right?
mm,
So did it ever occur to you that the eye exam guy, doctor, also is really running a glasses business? And what is the likelihood that they're not going to find something that could be corrected, right? So if that's been your go-to, and that's fine. There's a lot of good eye doctors that also sell glasses, but if that's been your go-to, and you feel like you're going to wear glasses the rest of your life, you may or may not be right about that. Maybe you can go and get your lenses completely replaced like we did and never have to wear glasses except sunglasses again. How, I mean, to I think both of us has been kind of life-changing, right? Even though
yeah,
in the morning I'm still grabbing for them, I don't have to wear them.
me
And neither do
too.
you.
Yeah. Well, I exactly. It's such because I've done it for all my life, but it's
Yeah.
it's called premium lens replacement. And we researched all of it for like 2 years. And Julie just said it 6 months ago. We had all of our lenses, our
All four
OEM,
eyeballs.
our original lenses were removed and they put in aftermarket lenses. I'm using
Mhm.
automotive terms for you guys that are nerdy out there.
But
And
that's an example of somebody who previously, whoever you're going to for advice was also selling you something. So you've got to at least question that and then follow your own well-researched advice.
we,
In coaching, we can save you a lot of that trouble.
Well, let's just tell the funny part of the story. So we went back to this optometrist and we had a ton of our frames left. And he has a donation thing going where he'll donate old frames to whatever charity. So he went in there and he's like, he was like, what the hell's
What?
going on? Why are you guys giving all your glasses up and you're not wearing glasses? And we said we had premium lens replacement surgery. And he did not know what we were talking about. So this optometrist, after we explained to him what we had done, because in Puerto Rico, they didn't do this procedure and he'd never studied it before. So he didn't even know about it. His face turned white because he quickly figured out the reality of it is that if everybody else learns about premium lens replacement therapy, he's out of business.
That's right.
Because, by the way, when you have your lenses replaced, you never have to wear glasses again. You'll never get cataracts. So all the aging things that you just accept as getting older, I might as well just accept the fact that I'm going to be wearing trifocals or whatever. You don't have to. And we're going to talk about that. I mean, health is a big passion of ours.
Sure.
And the next thing we're going to talk about, if you're open to it, is we're going to talk about spirituality, as Julie said earlier, or religion. We're going to talk about really because at the end of the day, whether you see yourself as a religious person or not, the tenets of religion, once if you follow them, will produce for you a more desirable outcome over time than not following them. But if that's not your jam, we're not going to talk about it. But this would be a good time to tell you guys that this is something that's very important in Julie and I's lives. I mean, we don't ask me to cite scripture, but it is a backbone of our relationship and of everything that we create for the coaching and training business. The next thing we're going to talk about, and this might surprise some of you, is you might be the healthiest person who knows how to earn the most amount of money, save the most amount of money. Now you know how to invest the most amount of money, all the things, but you don't know how to enjoy it. And that's
Mhm.
one of the ironies of real top producers, of people that know how to really grind and really, kick everyone's ass, is they don't know really how to actually enjoy the fruits of their labor. They don't know how to, back off from it and say, it's okay for me to now appreciate, to live in appreciation without feeling guilty. That's something, frankly, I've always struggled with, as Julie was
Mhm.
just laughing because she's surprised I wrote that down as a point. But it's true. Getting to the point where because if you hire an elite coach, you hire Julie and I, you get to the point where you have all the boxes checked And now you've arrived to the point where your money's working for you. You no longer have to work for your money. You've run a successful business. You've accomplished all the big goals that you've set for yourself, or most of them. And now it's time for you to maybe start setting goals that aren't just around production, aren't just around paying off debt, aren't just around, building up your fortune and creating your financial independence. They're about enjoying it. And that's where a lot of people fail. And that's the reason a lot of people just say, I don't know how to do anything else other than get back to work. Well, we're going to talk about that with you if that's your jam. Now, most of you are going to come to us and you're going to need to right size your business. You're going to need to get your finances back in order. You're going to need to work on your health. Wherever you're coming to us from, we're going to meet you there. And like I said, the first thing I would look for is fire hiring a coach. Is that coach actually trying to improve? Is that coach, lethargic? Are they, do you know if whether or not they're decamillionaires? Do you know whether or not they're all the things that you want to aspire to, have they actually accomplished it, or are they in the process of accomplishing it? And if they have, you need to keep looking, because if they knew how to do the things that you want to do, they would have done it already for themselves. Doesn't that make sense, Julie?
And 100% makes sense. And I want to rewind just for a second, because you were describing like enjoying the fruits of your labor. That is a bigger struggle than people think. That's also one of the profiles of our coaching clients, is they're actually at the pinnacle of their career. They've been doing this. They have got that mousetrap figured out. And now they're like, usually this happens with a significant birthday, right? 55, 60, somewhere in there, or maybe even 40 or 45. And they're like, okay, well, now they'll come to coaching and they'll say, you know what? I don't necessarily need that much help with my business, which may or may not be true. I want you to help me get a life back. I want to do as much or more business. And sometimes they'll even say, well, I can scale back a little bit, but I want to have a life. I want to enjoy my kids. I want to enjoy my grandkids. I want to see the world. I've never been to Europe before. You'd be surprised how many people say, you know what? I've always wanted to go to Paris. Help me actually deploy some of these things. And so that's goal setting at a totally different level, because you're less figuring out how they're going to pay for it. It's more like make them actually do it, because they're so used to that hamster wheel and they're good at that. And it's hard for them to step off for a little bit.
It's not the financial things that's standing in the way of them accomplish or living this, dream life. It's the psychology of not doing it.
And the guilt and stuff like that.
It's very rare that you come across a top producer in any field that was born with it. Very rare. Most everyone I've ever coached personally, especially in real estate, I honestly can't think of one single exception who wasn't a grinder just like Julie and I. Again, all the people I've ever coached that are the top
agents, of them were really great at something else and then applied it, but nobody was just like born into it.
I agree. I mean, we've had some people that were really successful at other industries or professional sports or professional athletes. I mean, I've had some people that were fighter pilots, all the things. And yes, you're right, because they know that they have to do what they don't want to do, and they don't want to do it at the highest level for long periods of time. And that's where the success is waiting for them. Yes, 100%. But yeah, I've never coached anyone that was born on third base. Everybody I've ever coached has been a grinder, just like Julie and I. And the problem with being a grinder is, if you're a grinder, you don't even have to be that smart. If you're willing to, again, do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it at the highest level, and you're listening to a coaching from somebody who's actually done it, been there, done that, can actually then transfer that knowledge to you in a coaching environment to show you how to do the same thing. On the other side of that, it's like, okay, I'm now, I've said this before, and I know it's counterintuitive, but some of the best coaching calls I've ever had are where they're firing me. Not because I don't love them and I don't miss talking to them. It's because they've accomplished all their goals. And I've had 3 or 4 that really stand out, where their goal was essentially to be making enough passive income, maybe from EXP revenue share, or maybe from having rental properties, or maybe from dividend paying stocks, or just all these different things. And they originally hired me. Maybe it was 5 years before, or 3 years before, or 10 years before. Julie's got somebody who's been with us for 20 years. But they get to that point financially where they're no longer having to work for money. Their money's working for them, and they don't want to have to grind it in real estate anymore, not at the same level. And the systems are already in place that they're going to be self-satisfying. They're going to essentially, they put it in the S&P 500, for example. In the last 20 years, it's appreciated by 10.3%. They've got $5 million saved, and the S&P is making $500,000 a year for them. They pull out $250 a year. Their total bills are like $12,000 a month. They're able to pull out, $20,000 a month. They are good.
Hmm.
Add to it if they have some EXP revenue share. Add to it if they've got some passive income from rental properties. The rental properties are offsetting the income on the, on the capital, on the dividends, the whole thing, right? So we've created this financial world for them. And what's really also interesting is oftentimes when you refocus people away from ego activities, branding, marketing, spending money just to spend money, spending money because you don't realize that you're just looking for the recognition from strangers. Julie mentioned this, and she didn't, I think, say what she was actually thinking. Most of the people that come to us are past the ego bullshit. They want to actually drill down and make themselves financially independent. That's truly what they want. And that's the reason that there is, sometimes you find people in their 30s that are like that, but most of the time it's the significant birthdays, like she said, 40, 45. And they're
Hmm.
looking back over their shoulders and they're saying, I've made a lot of money in the past, but I don't got jack to show for it. Those are the people also, if they're finally ready to really accept the fact that, okay, I might be really good at sales. I might be the world's best listing agent, but I am not good at these other things. I'm overweight. I don't have a great relationship with my spouse. I haven't, warmed a pew in church ever, all these things. And I want to get my act together and I want to really look forward to I want to open my mind to the possibility that my best days are still ahead of me opposed to behind me. Those are great coaching clients too. The ones that are the uncoachable are the ego ones that think they know it all. Frankly, you'll get sorted out if Julie and I won't even have you in our lives and our schedules. That's just the truth. So we're only looking for specific types of coaching clients that we want to coach, that are truly looking, that we know we can help. That's important, that
Hmm.
are ready to be helped. That combination
100%.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So because we do have limited schedules and because, I mean, when you said that we're not going to let people like that into our schedules, my initial thought was they're probably not still listening to this podcast anyway, so we don't have to worry about it because they're
No,
not open
that's
to the message yet.
well, but Julie, this is a good place for us to put in the 4 levels of learning,
Sure.
because it's important. I always screw these up, and
Well, they all do kind of sound the same.
well,
So
so
my
I'll do
note
the
takers
I'll,
can,
I'll do the
yeah.
first one, the second one,
Okay.
okay? All
Yep.
right, so there's 4 levels of learning, and I want you guys to think in terms of when you're trying to learn something new, when you're trying to learn, doesn't matter, to be a listing agent, to pre-qualify, to
Anything in life has the four
anything
levels
in
of
life.
learning.
And
Yeah.
this is applies. Okay. So the first point is where you're unconsciously incompetent. That's where you don't know what you don't know. Okay. You're unconsciously incompetent. Maybe when we started about the 4 or now the 5 filters for hiring a coach, you just been listening to whatever Yahoo showed up in your life and thought, that's an expert. Nuh-uh. They're just trying to sell you some CRM gimmick, right? Now you're realizing that. So when you realize that, maybe you followed some shiny objects. Maybe you listened to some people that are giving you some bad advice. How do you know if their advice was bad? Because it didn't make you any money. All right. So now you're going from unconsciously incompetent, where you don't know where you don't know. And now you're consciously incompetent, where you're now aware of some of the things that you don't know. Most people don't go to the unconsciously, to the conscious incompetence phase until they've lost a
Mhm.
listing, until they've
It's an
lost
aha moment of some sort.
and use okay, but again, it can apply to health. It can apply to marital relationships. It can apply to all kinds of different aspects. So you go from not knowing what you don't know to oh crap, and then
Mhm.
the next phase after that, Julie Harris.
Okay, so first, let's just review. You've got unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Then you become conscious of your incompetence. Oh my gosh, there's this stuff I got to learn. Then you start applying it and applying it. This is the hard part. Sometimes that's called concentration, doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. You're learning. Then you become consciously competent. Okay. You do know what you're doing. You do know how to do it, but you have to be very conscious and aware and do it on purpose and follow systems and strategies and scripts. You're applying the things that you're learning. Okay. That's conscious competence. Then at the top level, which everybody wants to skip to, of course, is unconscious competence. That's like autopilot. I know how to do it. Like you send me a listing referral, I am not worried about it. I know the system I'm going to follow. I know how to do my comps. I know how to talk to the seller. I know how to objection handle. I know how to close. I am unconsciously competent. It's autopilot.
Well, so specifically, when you're on some of you, at least potential elite coaching clients, you are unconsciously competent about some of the core activities in sales. You probably have some natural skills. You probably are really good at getting people to like you. You probably have some really good intuitive abilities to read people. That's a special characteristic, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not uncommon. You And now you're realizing you don't know how to go after expireds. Now you're realizing you don't know how to build wealth. Now
You're
you're
probably
realizing,
way better at buyers than sellers.
yeah, I'll say that's true. Definitely. Okay. So now those are the 4 stages of learning. Now here, this is the reason I wanted to vamp on this for a bit. If you're just going to an agent who's only, remember the 5 filters now for choosing a coach, and you're just going to an agent who's sold a lot of houses and they've done it consistently, that's great. But the truth is if they've not done a lot of coaching calls, they don't have the ability, the skill set to transfer that knowledge to other people. They haven't proven their ability to be real estate coaches. So the rules and the requirements to call you real estate coach, there are none. So everyone calls themselves a real estate coach. It's been bastardized for sure. Julie and I are thinking about even changing ourselves to high performance coaches or something like that, just because every Tom, Dick, and Harry will call themselves a real estate coach. And frankly, it's designed to obscure the fact that they're not, in our opinion, they're not qualified to be coaching you guys to anything. Because here's the next phase. Even if you do find someone that has sold a lot of houses consistently for a long period of time, it doesn't mean they know how to transfer that knowledge to you. So the fifth level of learning is, and that you guys can research this yourself, it's kind of fascinating, is where you actually have the ability to coach and train and teach other people how to operate at a high level. And I have news for you. The reason that's the fifth level is because it's the hardest one to achieve, because it requires the most time and requires the most, honestly, it's the most work by far. It's so much easier, as I was talking earlier, to be a top producing agent than to do what Julie and I have done professionally as coaches. Because being a top producing agent is not that difficult, honestly. Lead generating, not that difficult. It's a lot of mindset stuff, but at the end of the day, pretty straightforward. Pre-qualifying, here's the script, learn how to say it. Presenting, all the things that we teach you guys in Premier Coaching, it's really not that difficult. Learning how to help people move past the reason why, for example, they're not willing to be a proactive lead generator, or why they're not willing to ask the pre-qualification questions, or why it is that their ego is making them broke. Moving past all those, like, I'll give you guys an example. I mean, this isn't completely relevant, but it's interesting, I think. I was on a coaching call with, it was actually not a formal coaching call, but somebody that I coach informally. He's someone in our EXP Realty group. And this was probably 2 years ago. And I had seen, he actually came to visit us in Puerto Rico. And I was surprised to see he was kind of fat. Now, I didn't say anything. But it was totally out of characteristic for the person I know he is. And so I noticed that he was eating a lot of candy. And I asked him about that. So what's up with the eating candy? He goes, this is my release. This is what I do. This is my reward for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said to him, I said, you know what? I've had other coaching clients, or I've had friends that have done that too. And if you stop to actually think about what you're doing, stop to actually break the unconscious behavior that you're exhibiting, or that you're doing to poison yourself effectively with all that fake sugar, and you say, okay, you're about to put that piece of candy in your mouth. How many moments of pleasure, mouth pleasure, do you get versus what's the cost of actually having done it? And it was probably 2 or 3 months later that he thanked me for that conversation, and he had lost a bunch of weight. He claimed he wasn't on semaglutide. He probably was. But anyway, it doesn't matter. He said he stopped his pattern of unconscious eating because he was now seeing the unconscious eating, especially of candy, as not an award to himself, but as a punishment to his future self, because he knew he was causing himself potential health problems. You guys get it? That's coaching. It's not telling them all the reasons why you shouldn't be eating saturated fats and corn syrupy paste garbage and all the rest of it. He knew that. That's obvious knowledge. It was asking questions that allowed him to arrive at the answer himself. Because if someone just tells you something, Julie, this is what you should do, your brain is only absorbing maybe 3% of what I just said. Even if you did ask for the advice, that's your YouTube coach, by the way. That's not even barely training. But if you say someone presents in your life as a coach and they say, or as a client, and they say, I've got these specific challenges, or maybe they don't even identify the challenges that they have, you have to know how to ask questions to help them realize what the real challenges are that they're having in their business and financial lives and health maybe. And then you have to walk them through, okay, this is you don't give them these are the 10 steps that you should be doing. That's not coaching, that's training. What you're then going to do is you're going to help them work through combination of things, psychology of why they're doing that behavior or not doing the behavior. You have to work multidimensional, because that's how humans really truly are. And then you can't just tell them what the result should be or tell them what to do. You have to ask questions in such a way that they self-discover the answers. Because if you guys have ever had an epiphany or an aha moment, that's my goal as a coach. I want you to have continuous, it won't be on every coaching call, certainly not. It'll be on maybe every third coaching call. It may be not even on a coaching call. It'll be between coaching calls where you're going to have that aha moment where things are just going to make sense, where all of a sudden a light bulb is going to go on your head and it's going to be something that you discovered in yourself. Because as a coach, here's what I know for a fact. All the answers that you're ever seeking are already inside of you. My job as a real estate coach is to help you just as a coach, basically, is to help you discover those answers. Very rarely do you not already. So when you discover something, it's an aha moment. It feels intuitive. It feels like that was somewhere in the brain. You just need to move some stuff aside to find it. I call it moving stuff around your attic. And there you find what you've been looking for. Those aha moments, those epiphanies, that only comes from true coaching. That doesn't come from training, or that certainly doesn't come from someone who's just an inexperienced real estate coach. Does that make sense, Julie?
It does. And when you have those moments, it's almost like it comes forth from your own soul, from your own
Yeah,
being.
it's true.
That's what we're trying to stimulate. Because you're right, it is the difference between coaching and training. Of course, like your office manager can say, "Hey, you know what? You need more listings. You should try
Mhm.
this, this, and this." Duh, you already know that. But when you go through a series of questions and self-discovery, why is it I don't have more listings? Am I afraid of having more listings? Am I afraid of the success? What would happen if I did have to handle like 10 actives at the same time? And you bring out that self-discovery,
Well,
that's when the breakthrough moments happen.
hover where you just stopped, okay, what you just said, because that's really important. Because I've
Mhm.
discovered in coaching, because I've had over 100,000 coaching calls myself,
Mhm.
let's go back. Most people that are highly successful in real estate are grinders. They did not come from
True.
money. They do not know how to keep it. They know how to spend it. They know how to earn it. They know how to spend it. They don't know how to keep it.
Right.
So if all of a sudden they start earning a lot of money consistently, and let's say they buy some rental properties and they start accumulating it, they are in uncharted waters for themselves and
Mhm.
also for everyone else that they know. So they have no emotional
That's true.
connections to anybody, reinforcing Julie. They have no emotional connections to anybody who's actually been there, done that. And so they then start feeling insecure. And this is what you guys have who was it? Warren Buffett said this. He said, everyone likes to celebrate the comeback story, the man or the woman that made it and then lost it. He said he likes to celebrate the woman that made it and never lost it. And so what a lot of people have done in their entire lives is they make it, they lose it, they make it, they lose it, not just for money, but for any levels of most important things, health, relationships, all the things. They'll make it, they lose it, they make it, they lose it. So why does that happen? Because you get to the point, let's just focus on finances because frankly it's the easiest one to get really good at. Money is the easiest of all the goal categories to be successful in. But you'll accumulate this money, all of a sudden you've got money, you've got more money in the bank than you've ever had before, you're making more money than everybody you know, most everyone you know. You're now able to do what you want to do, in some cases have vacations, have these experiences and the rest of it. You're actually on your way. And then what's going to happen, and this happens to nearly everyone, is the people in your environment will start to reject you. They'll start treating you differently. You might start acting differently. And then you're going to all of a sudden have family members reject you. Your friends reject you. Your neighborhood not rejects you like, oh, I'm no longer going to hang out with
Yeah.
Bob, but they start to say little snidey ass things. You better stop and smell the roses. Or, I see that you bought a new boat. What was wrong with your, 18-foot boat? I don't know anything about boats. Why'd you go out and buy a 50-foot boat? Maybe it's not even going to be through materialism and you're not being showy. Maybe it's just because you become more confident. Oh, how about this one? You now have lost 30 pounds. You're in great shape. They see you walking around the neighborhood all the time. They see you walking around the neighborhood all the time with your wife. And they're going to say, well, don't you have any guy friends? I get this sometimes. Or they'll say it
Mhm.
to Julie. Don't you have a girls group that you hang out with? Why don't you come play tennis with us or golf with us? Because they don't have those relationships with their husbands. They feel
Mhm.
insecure seeing, and I know this is the case because we've been in environments before where they have basically said anyway, long story short, the people around you who you think will reinforce your success as you become more successful, oftentimes won't, because they themselves are seeing you become more successful and you're making them insecure. You're making them, frankly, question. They don't want to question themselves. They don't want to change. And you now are representing their complacency. or they're being complacent. You're not being complacent. You're changing. You're now maybe causing them some discomfort because they're now starting to think, well, if that's not good enough, if living in this neighborhood is not good enough, if not, Bob's no longer fat. Everyone at the barbecue is fat. Bob's not fat. Bob must not like us because he's no longer like us. And what are they going to do? They're going to bring you extra beers and extra plates of food and all this other shit, trying to make you fat,
Eat, you're too skinny.
right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but do you guys notice that? That's how, and now they're not doing it to be pernicious. They're not doing it to be evil or mean. They're just doing it because subconsciously they're feeling insecure. And that's what happens to a lot of top producing agents in a aspect of life. They arrive at a point, they're now basically at this level where they've never imagined themselves to be. They're not finding any kind of reinforcement for it. And then they bring themselves back down. And I've seen this happens a lot with men. They'll gain weight. They'll cheat on their
Wreck their
wives.
marriages.
They'll do dumb things with drugs and alcohol. They'll do dumb shit with investing.
Well, but it's because they're going back to what's familiar, right? Everybody gets it.
But let me finish. So they'll destroy what they've created. They do it subconsciously. They'll destroy what they've created. They'll do it subconsciously because what Julie was saying, they're going to take themselves back down to where they started because that's comfortable. Oh, now I've got my 30 pounds back. Everyone's welcoming me back at the barbecue. You guys get it?
Yeah. And sometimes that happens unconsciously or subconsciously. And that's another good reason to have a coach, because one of our jobs is to see that happening before you do, to get in front of that and say, hey, you know what? I mean, we can hear, a lot of my coaching clients have been with me a long time, and I can usually tell in the first 30 seconds or less what kind of day they're having based on their tonality, based on how they answer, so I think of us as interested third parties, where we can look in at all these different angles and what's going on with your health and what's going on with your relationships, what's going on with your real estate deals. Sometimes it's just one little thing that we'll notice. It seems like you've stopped doing this or you've started doing that. And because you guys are in it, especially as we call them lovingly, our grinder clients, right? Who know how to produce, especially you guys, because you're in it like this. You're like, produce. I know how to do this. I'm familiar with this. I just want more of this. And meanwhile, maybe some things are happening around here. And we'll look in from the outside and say, are you aware of this? Let's get in front of this. Let's maybe change a system or get a different solution, or maybe change your ways, change your habits, get more discipline on this or that.
But Julie, what people, this, but you cannot, it's like when you're a business owner, first of all, you're just gonna have to accept the fact that you're gonna have 24/7 antivirus software running in your head.
Yeah.
When you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, there is no not thinking about it. So just stop not thinking about it. Stop, you can hire someone to think about it for you, but you're always going to think about it. And if you stop thinking about that thing that, is not going to be in existence much longer. You are special. You are unique. That business exists not because of your incredible systems, your incredible branding, your incredible staff, your incredible team. You are the key player in that business. And I look at, for example, eXp Realty. Glenn Sanford is the key player in that business. If you look at, Tesla, Elon Musk is the key player in that business. There are such things as really, really, really rare people that are, micro percents of all population. God, for some reason, has designed all of us to basically fill specific roles in life. And some of us, a lot of you, the grinders out there that we're talking to, the ones that are appropriate to be elite coaching clients, frankly, you guys are one of the chosen to be, frankly, in this perpetual state of grinding. It just is who you are. I can't stop thinking like that. And I have tried, and I'm not going to try to stop thinking about it, because I now realize at 55 that it's a huge gift. It is. And so do I apply it more to making business money for Julie and I, and all the other things, or do I then apply it to those things? And do I then help you guys apply it to your own businesses? And that's what drove me back to wanting to be having coaching clients again, because I get so much fulfillment. I get more fulfillment now out of helping someone become a multimillionaire, hearing about their trip to wherever, having paid off the bill, having, had this experience that they said, 24 months ago, I had these particular goals, and I've been with you for 24 months now, and I'm seeing those goals accomplished. I truly get, at this point in my life, more fulfillment out of that than buying another Ferrari. Honestly,
That's the honest truth. Yeah.
It is the honest truth. I've already got a new Ferrari. I don't need another one. We've already got a whole bunch of everything. We don't need more shit. Trust me. Or even going to Paris again. I mean, I love going to Paris. I love going. Julie and I spent all last summer, around Europe. And we had a great time. But you know what? A really great coaching call that leads to other, it doesn't even have to be like, oh my God, that was an amazing call, but a really great long-term solution for a coaching client is more personally satisfying to me at this point in my life than all the little tchotchke things that I would have thought were more important when I was younger. And I don't know why I feel that way, but you know what? I'm not going to question why I feel that way. So I want to get back into having one-on-one coaching clients. This is where we're going with this. And you guys know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long period of time, you know my personality. So you know what you're signing yourself up for. Now, what Julie and I have done over the years is we've had, you guys could then like, so what's your next step? If you think you fit one of these profiles, if you are, by the way, Julie just took on a really great coaching client who just got her license, but this lady was an absolute stud from her other career. And she normally never would have been somebody that would have been appropriate for being an elite coaching client, but she was based on her background. Julie talked to her, I talked to her, and we thought to ourselves, you know what? This lady she was like we have had these in the past, professional athletes, like we said, or fighter pilots. Like if you're a freaking fighter pilot, or if you were in special forces, if you were a Navy SEAL, we've had all you guys as real estate clients. I don't give a rat's ass. If you are a freaking Navy SEAL and you want to be in my elite schedule,
you got the ingredients.
You got it. You're done. Just text me and say, Tim, I was in Navy SEAL team. I was in the SEALs for 4 years. I was in team 2 and team 5. I'm going to be like, giddy up, let's go. Because you've already proven your ability to do what you don't want to do, and you don't want to do it at the highest level, and set your ego aside and accomplish a goal. Those are some of the biggest building blocks to long-term success. You're good. But for most of you listening, you're going to be a grinder. You're going to have plateaued emotionally, spiritually, financially, health-wise, maybe relationship-wise, and you're ready to go to the next level. You in your heart, maybe from listening to us for the last bit here, in your heart that your best days could still be ahead of you. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't. If you're in your 70s or 80s even, and you're saying, I want to, at this point in my life, I want to leave a really great, we've had coaching clients like this. I want to leave some legacy, as it were, for my grandchildren. I want to pay specific. Okay, so what does that mean? I want to pay for all my kids. I have 6 grandchildren. I want to pay for at least half, if not all, of their college. Okay, well, how much is that going to cost? Where are you thinking they're going to go to school? Well, they're going to go to this school. What's that? We put it together. We figure out a plan behind it. We accomplish it. We decide when the goal is going to be accomplished by. We decide the formulaic approach to doing it. And then then we look for other reasons and other things that we can be working on simultaneously. That's what we do. Julie calls it habit stacking, and it is what it is. But if you're working on improving your business, and you're working on improving your relationship with God, and you're improving your physical health, you do all these things simultaneously in a scheduled, disciplined way that will help you to do, you will accomplish all of them faster. Because if you're just saying, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get in stellar shape, but you're neglecting your relationship with God, you're neglecting your personal relationship with your spouse, your children, you're neglecting your finances, you might be the best looking broke, person, right, at the gym. That's not really an outcome that we'd want for you. So the moral of the story is, if you think you're ready to take your business and personal life to the next level, Julie and I would like to talk with you about being an elite coaching client. And we'll talk to you more specifically about what that entails. But I'm not looking for a lot of clients. I'm looking for probably, 10. Julie's already got a full schedule, but I'm sure she would entertain the right person. But that's what we're looking for. And what we're going to do is we want to find this core group of people, and we want to focus on, for the next 24, 36 months, like having a really intense relationship with all of them, where we can put all you guys together. So we'll do maybe some retreats. You guys can come stay with us in Puerto Rico, or we can go maybe hang out in Miami or whatever, where all of you are going to get together. We don't want a bunch of people. We only want a small group of dedicated folks. And we're going to help you guys to help each other as a group, but also we're going to directly one-on-one coach you. So this is a multifaceted approach to one-on-one coaching that we don't know if it's ever been done before. And we don't want to go to a retreat with you guys, or a mastermind with you guys at the Ritz-Carlton in Puerto Rico, where we live, and then have you guys show up, with terrible health problems, or, having left behind a horrible problem with your spouse or whatever. We want to make it so all these things are moving forward simultaneously, because that's where you build true everlasting momentum. So what are you going to do? I'm going to make it really simple for you. You guys simply have to text me directly at 512-758-0206. Julie, make sure Ann puts that in the notes.
Mhm.
512-758-0206. Text me directly. And when you do, text me a little bit of information on yourself, and I will text you back, and then we'll have a one-on-one call. We'll actually talk, and we're going to find out whether or not you're a good fit for me, a good fit for Julie, or maybe just not ready for elite level coaching. So just text me directly at 512-758-0206. Again, it's 512-758-0206. This is something I'm really looking forward to doing. I am going to be very picky about who I work with, because this is not just a one and done type deal. I'm not just going to have a coaching call with you every week and then not think about it. You're going to be living rent free in my brain nonstop, like I do with Julie and her clients. And we're going to be thinking, and we're going to be masterminding between the two of us, how we can make you move faster, how you can have a more complete, business and personal life. So if that's you, after listening to us for this long, it probably is you. So text me directly at 512-758-0206. Anything else you'd like to say, guys, Jules?
Well, I'm excited for your relaunch into taking after some of these guys. It'll be exciting to hear about all of your new clients and potential clients. And, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. So be ready. When we talk to you, you're going to text first, and then we're going to talk to you on the phone. Be ready to take notes, answer a lot of questions, be introspective. And I'm excited.
I'm glad you're excited, because I'm sure some of these guys are going to be buttheads, and I'm going to need your help coaching them. So it's
That's
all
okay.
good.
It's what we do.
So in the meantime, you guys have a fantastic weekend. And remember, this is not our normal, coaching and training podcast. If you want to listen to any of those, there's 7,000 plus: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify,
And
YouTube,
more coming next week.
and more coming next week and the week after and the week after. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show on Monday.